We've had an arson attack on the Governor Shapiro there in Pennsylvania. You have the murder of the state representatives, Melissa Hortman and her husband in Minnesota.
That is a problem that we are seeing explode on generative AI in private sector and social media companies. And what we're doing is engaging with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children.
They've seen a 30% drop in violent crime and a 19% drop in overall crime. So it is actually producing results. It's this type of
That opening hits like a storm. Senator Katie Britt came out swinging, confronting political violence, child exploitation, and national safety all in one hearing. You could feel the weight in the room when she mentioned the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and later, the shocking AI-driven explosion in child abuse cases. But amid all that darkness, she ended on a note of hope, real progress on crime reduction. Let's break down what happened, why this hearing matters, and what it says about the direction the country is heading.
Yes. Well, before I begin, I want to thank Senator Hirono for what she said, acknowledging that there are physical differences between men and women, talking about that women wouldn't be able to do as many pull-ups. And I think that she was making a case here that there should be different standards. There's a thing called Title IX, and this is why we continue to say we should have biological men and men's sports and biological women and women's sports. And so I look forward to utilizing that to talk to all of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Maybe they will stand with us in helping us protect women's sports. I think she made a great argument there for it. Moving on to today, Director Patel, thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to making sure that America is safe again. Thank you for doing that coast to coast and within our cities. I certainly look forward to talking about that and talking about your historic gains in these areas. But I would be remiss if I didn't begin my questioning with you about the horrific events that we have seen over the last week. Obviously, our heart breaks not only for Erica and Charlie's two children and for parents and families, but for America and for those of us who knew him, you being chief among those. So just my sincere condolences and thank you for the steps that you and the FBI have taken to make sure that we have someone within custody and we're going to be able to move forward with that. But if you look over the last, since last summer alone, we had 2 assassination attempts on the president. We've had an arson attack on the Governor Shapiro there in Pennsylvania. You have the murder of the state representatives, Melissa Hortman and her husband in Minnesota, along with the shooting of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Several anti-Semitic attacks, several attacks on Christians that were noted by Senator Hawley. We had the killing of 2 Israeli embassy staffers here in D.C., the June firebombing in Colorado. We could go on, and we saw a culmination, as Senator Schmidt said, with the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk last week.
This is where the emotion peaks. Britt's tone shifts from empathy to urgency. She's not just mourning, she's demanding action. The mention of multiple high-profile attacks underscores her point. The political climate is more dangerous than ever. Patel's answer is, we follow the money. Sounds measured, but you can feel how big this problem really is.
I appreciate you committing to both Senator Hawley and Senator Kennedy, talking about making sure that all that are involved are held accountable. I think that is critically important, and I think that America needs that transparency. I want to read you some words of Vice President J.D. Vance. He said, if we want to stop political violence like what happened to Charlie Kirk, we have to be honest about the people who are celebrating it and the people who are financing it. My question to you is, in light of Charlie's murder and all of the things that we have just referenced and have been talking about today, what steps is the FBI taking to more aggressively crack down on those who promote, encourage, finance, fund these types of engagements and this type of political violence?
Thank you, Senator, for your kind words. So in terms of how we crack down on the root cause of this violence, for now putting aside the ideological motivations and how they got there, the monetary issue is a real issue. And as I've said before, we follow the money. So we work with our partners at the Treasury Department to trace where the money came from, how these individuals paid for the training they received or the platforms they were using, and also how these individuals collectively got together in whatever groups they were on whatever social media sites they were on, to utilize clickbait to make money for their ideology. And so to trace all of those, we are using, not just in Charlie's investigation, but others, lawful process and serving 2703D orders on any entity that is related in any way financially to any of these criminal acts of violence. And we are going to hold them accountable with our partners at the Department of Justice.
Excellent. I would love to stay abreast of that and just We must get to the bottom of it. We must follow the money. Someone is funding this discourse. Do you believe, obviously there are people here, unfortunately American citizens that may be engaged in that, but do you also believe that some of this may be coming from overseas?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to the bottom of it and let's make it stop.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about the Dobbs decision. So we know that it was leaked in May of 22, and then we had the Marshal Service say we found nothing in January of 23. I find that absolutely mind-boggling that we can't figure out who leaked that opinion. We know it was done in attempts to undermine the process, and then the intimidation of the justices occurred after that. Tell me what you can do as FBI director to help us get to the bottom of what happened and actually hold someone accountable for their actions.
So I can't speak to what the marshals did and how they conducted their investigation. I can tell you, generally speaking, the FBI has taken over the investigation on the leak because it was such a detrimental leak.
So you commit to getting to the bottom of it.
We are utilizing the full resources of the FBI as we usually do on leak investigations, and we will make sure our results are public at the appropriate time.
We need answers. I want to talk about child sexual exploitation. Thank you for making protecting our youth your top priority. We know that that is the greatest gift that we have. That is our greatest treasure here in the United States is the next generation. And finally, we have an FBI director that is putting that at the top of his list. Can you tell me the steps and the different initiatives? I've heard you talk about a couple of them. You've mentioned 764 amongst other things. Tell me what you're doing. And specifically, I want to know about when it comes to sextortion. So as a parent who is raising children right now, teenagers, and you're looking at what's happening, whether people are snapping photos and then what's happening online. I've had a number of parents sit in front of me telling me terrible, heartbreaking stories about their children ultimately taking their own life because of being blackmailed. I want to know what steps are you taking to get to the bottom of that and to absolutely end this. If this were happening in a storefront, Mr. Director, that store would be shut down, no matter where it was, coast to coast. And yet we continue to allow these things to happen, and we've got to have a more targeted approach when we're looking at this. And so what are you doing to protect children and specifically sextortion?
So in our VCAC initiative, our Violent Crimes Against Children is our umbrella enterprise operations hub for things like Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Not Forgotten and Operation Justice. And in things like that, those are producing the results that I told you about. 1,500 child predators arrested, 300 human traffickers arrested, 4,700 children identified and saved, a 35% increase from year to date last year alone. But specifically on your sextortion question, Senator, that is a problem that we are seeing explode on generative AI and private sector and social media companies. And what we're doing is engaging with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, because this one stat alone should probably cause great pause. They have seen a 1,325% increase in generative AI leading to sextortion and child sexual abuse. That cannot be countermanded by the FBI alone. We have embedded people at NCMEC and have a great partnership with them. But what we need to do is what we did in the month of May, and we're doing it over and over again. We arrested 400 individuals in 1 month in 1 month search.
Wow,
These individuals have prioritized, the agents and intel analysts have never left that mission. They're doing multiple missions at the same time. That's what the FBI is called upon to do day in and day out, and we won't stop doing two things at once.
This is one of the most haunting moments. When a U.S. senator says parents are losing their kids to online blackmail, and the FBI director confirms AI is fueling a 1,300% surge, it's chilling. Britt's anger here feels maternal, protective, and real. It's not politics. It's about saving kids.
But we need help from social media companies. We need help from the private sector and the internet service providers that allow this generative AI to be hosted on their platforms. We have got to get a resolution on that with our partners in Congress and the private sector.
Well, we are definitely committed to working on that. I know the people up here. So you let us know what tools you need, and I know we've got several ideas that we look forward to pushing forward. In my remaining 2 minutes, I want to talk to you about your historic results when it comes to crime. In particular, we've seen here in D.C. just a total transformation. You mentioned earlier 60% down in gun crime, 70% down in carjackings. You said 50% down in homicides, to name a few. We have a success story, and we appreciate President Trump's leadership on all of this. We have a success story in Alabama where the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, so ALEA, they just marked their 1-year anniversary of the Metro Area Crime Suppression Unit. There in Montgomery, it is a coordinated effort with ALEA, with our Attorney General, with Montgomery PD, and our Sheriff, Montgomery County county sheriffs. They've seen a 30% drop in violent crime and a 19% drop in overall crime. So it is actually producing results. It's this type of interagency connectivity that I think ultimately is going to lead us to safer cities and safer streets. I know that you are committed to that, committed to working with your partners. You said earlier you've elevated sheriffs and police officers there to the 7th floor. Thank you for doing that. I am grateful for the men and women of Alabama in uniform that have made this happen and want to know how is the FBI working to collaborate in these types of ways across our country to make sure that we have even greater success stories to tell.
Well, the collaboration's happening at our Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. We bring 4,000 students through our Redstone Arsenal for training every year. In terms of our future plans, in the next few years, we will bring 13,000 students a year through Alabama's Redstone Arsenal. And by students, I mean FBI employees, I mean sheriffs, I mean police chiefs, I mean cops, I mean intel analysts, because that is their future gem of how we're going to train local law enforcement. And we're so thankful for the dedication of resources to that facility. And I encourage everyone to go down there and take a look, because if you want to see where the FBI is going and how we're going to train the future, it's happening at Quantico and Redstone.
We are very proud of it, and thank you so much for your leadership.
This Senate exchange between Senator Katie Britt and FBI Director Kash Patel exemplifies the complex choreography of modern American governance, where genuine policy concerns blend seamlessly with partisan messaging and constituent service. The hearing opens with a striking pivot. Britt repurposes a colleague's remarks about physical differences between men and women to advocate against transgender participation in women's sports. This rhetorical maneuver serves as ideological signaling to conservative voters before transitioning to law enforcement matters. It's a calculated strategy. Establish tribal credentials first, then address governing responsibilities. Britt then presents a litany of recent political violence: assassination attempts on the president, attacks on state legislators, anti-Semitic incidents, and a high-profile murder. While these security concerns are undeniably serious, the presentation subtly frames a narrative of escalating left-wing violence without explicit attribution. This framing shapes public perception while maintaining plausible deniability about partisan intent. Patel navigates these politically charged waters with diplomatic precision. His commitment to investigating financial networks supporting political violence sounds appropriately resolute while remaining sufficiently vague to avoid partisan entanglement. When asked about foreign funding of domestic discord, his affirmative response opens investigative avenues without revealing classified intelligence or complicating diplomatic relations, a masterclass in bureaucratic communication. The discussion of the leaked Supreme Court Dobbs opinion represents the most overtly political moment. Britt's frustration with investigative failures reflects broader conservative anger about institutional accountability, while Patel's assurance of FBI control offers political cover, though such promises often evaporate given investigative complexities and constitutional constraints on prosecuting leakers. More substantively, the focus on child sexual exploitation reveals rare bipartisan territory. Britt's concern about online predators and sextortion, highlighting a staggering 1,325% increase in AI-generated child abuse material, transcends partisan divisions. Her invocation of parental anxiety about teenage social media use resonates universally, though she carefully avoids naming specific platforms or advocating regulations that might alienate Silicon Valley donors. Patel's recitation of crime statistics, claiming 60 to 70% reductions in various Washington, D.C. crime categories, serves the administration's law and order messaging. Such dramatic improvements often reflect statistical baseline effects or measurement methodologies rather than sustainable policy achievements, but they provide valuable political ammunition regardless of underlying complexity. The exchange concludes by celebrating Alabama's Redstone Arsenal FBI training facility, illustrating how federal resource distribution drives congressional behavior. Britt secures commitment for facility expansion while advancing broader law enforcement priorities, classic constituent service disguised as national security oversight. Both participants demonstrate fluency in contemporary political performance. Britt positions herself simultaneously as defender of women's sports, protector of children, advocate for crime victims, and champion of Alabama's interests, all within minutes. Patel projects competence, deference to congressional authority, and commitment to nonpartisan law enforcement while carefully avoiding commitments that might constrain FBI independence. This exchange ultimately reveals modern American political discourse. legitimate oversight interwoven with grandstanding, substantive policy discussion shadowed by performative messaging, and genuine achievements announced alongside aspirational promises. The challenge for engaged citizens lies in distinguishing between what sounds reassuring in congressional hearings and what actually produces measurable improvements in community safety and institutional accountability.